Hello, everyone. And yeah, I'm really happy that I can finally focus on this video that I've been wanting to do for you. It's been an intense month of July, lots of things happening. Maybe some of you have seen that, yeah, I hosted this Electric Poets event in the Art Lab, and it's been also terribly hot. So, yeah. Beautiful sides, but also challenges. And yeah, and last night we had a big rain, and today it's really refreshed. So it's the day. I'm super happy to be ready to spend this time and trying to share with you yeah, some information that I think can be helpful. So please always give me your feedback. That's always nice to know how it lands on your side. So I don't feel so cut out. Yes. So today what I want to talk about is some subject that we have already been looking into in the last labs, but I'm trying to bring it again in a refresh way, in a way that I also feel that I can go back myself again and again into some of these tools or principles that are really supporting our creative process. So today I want to talk a bit about the creative process itself and the cycle of the creative process, and how somehow we might be getting stuck, and we can get stuck at different parts of, in different moments of this cycle. And I'm going to address a little bit like that first half, I would say, of the cycle. And then when we go more towards the second half, I mean, the first half and the center, and then when we go more towards the finishing, this I will address in a different video. But I'm going to review the full cycle just to get an idea, that everybody gets an idea of how I see myself, I experience myself, the creative cycle, but also many artists, I think, are seeing it in a similar way. Now, there is no rule, and things can always morph and take different forms in art. So this is not to say that it has to be like this, but it's usually happens like this. And I'm gonna try to give you, also share with you some tools that are helpful when we get stuck. So the first thing I want to actually address before I even jump into the cycle is the inner critic. I think I talked a little bit about the inner critic already in one of the videos, but I just want to go back into it because this is often a source of getting stuck, or paralyzed, or also disconnection, because the inner critic can go in different ways. And I will use the word inner critic for these voices that can come to all of us, which are not helpful, because that word critic, somehow I find it's already a bit painful. So it's not helpful, and how we can transform this, I would say, unmature and unskilled inner critic into an observer, and into a skilled observer, and into a constructive collaborator. For me, this is really the shift that we want to operate. So the first thing that we want to do is to bring some observation, and that's all along my talk of today. You will see that observation is central, because it is. And so it's to observe these voices that come in, and they can come in different forms. And a form that many of us meet is a little bit like the sabotage. You know, it's like, oh God, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, do you even know what you're doing? Do you think you're really an artist? I mean, look at this, it looks like shit. This kind of, you know, really like putting ourselves down and sabotaging whatever we've been doing. So that's one form. And of course, you know, for each one of us, it will have its own unique words and way to express, which is something that we want to actually really become more aware of, and I'm going to explain, really why. And then there can be also another form of the inner critic, which is praise, which is, oh my God, I'm doing something amazing there. I mean, it's going to be, and it's projecting us already into the future. Yeah, and I do another one. And then actually, I'm not anymore with the work. I'm not anymore with what's happening there. So with both these kind of voices, either the sabotage or the praise, we actually get disconnected to what is happening truly in the work, which is what is really important, right? So I found that the first step is really to bring observation so we can recognize these voices when they come back. They usually have a certain tone, a certain vocabulary, a certain way to come in. And we need to really strengthen that observation muscle. For me, that's really a muscle that needs practice, so that we are able to, I recognize this voice, this is my inner critic coming. And then I know that actually this is not a helpful voice, right? The reason why these voices develop, it's very linked to, our need to be recognized, our need, and the fact that in the past we have been judged or evaluated and turned down. I have so many people who come to me and say, well, I stopped drawing or painting because my teacher or whoever told me, oh, what are you doing? This is horrible. And then that was it. I completely stopped. I froze. I didn't want to even touch it, because it's so painful to be criticized and put down by others, that then we rather don't do it at all, so we don't take any risk, right? And then the praise, which is the other side, I think it's this is our deep wish to be recognized, appreciated, and received, all of this praise from the outside, and that is also not helpful, actually, because this is also limiting us in our authentic and process that we go in with all our integrity, right? And with all our presence and our own unique way of finding the way, actually, in our own creative process. So we want to be able to recognize them. And for those who are not yet familiar with working with these voices, I would even recommend that you take some time to write down in your journal, what kind of words, sentences, and way of talking this part, these voices express themselves within you. So you can recognize, and probably in doing that, you will be able to identify, that was the voice of my mother, or that was the voice of my teacher, or that was the voice of this person, whatever. So we recognize that, and this is helping that process of disidentification. So when that voice comes up, I'm immediately like, oops, little warning, this is not helpful. So I need to bring more spaciousness. I need to maybe have a little chat with my inner critic and say, look, I know you really want me to be a wonderful artist, or you're really afraid, but I'm going to be criticized, I'm going to be turned down, etc. But it's okay. I have other ways to work on that, so I can create best possible piece, and that's what I want to do. So give me a break, So I say sometimes just ask the inner critic to go for, a little, have a coffee outside of the, the studio, and give you some space. And in that space, what you want is to start to really call in your capacity to observe. You want to develop an observer, a skilled observer, an observer that is able to see the details, to be concrete, to truly analyze your work. So this is what we're going to talk about now. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the creative cycle now, so that you see where these things are going to intersect somehow, because depending on the different phases of the creative cycle, we might get stuck in different ways, right? So the creative cycle, I mean, as we saw, you know, many people also come to me, I know, and they say, I want to be creative, but I don't know how to start. Okay, so this is why we go back to the beginning of a cycle. There is the attractors, and there is play and free exploration. So the attractors are already giving us an idea of a direction that we want to explore and play with. And in the beginning, really play and free exploration is the best icebreaker. It's also because in the beginning, I think it's really important to go in free of the pressure of result. So I might have a direction, it starts to, you know, there's some things going on a bit there, but first I want to play. I want to play and try out things and see what happens, all right? So this entry through the play, you know, is helping us also kind of, you know, trying out all different things related to our attractors, so that progressively through observation, because we got to be creating and then observing, what do I like? Well, in what came up, you know, where are the attractors now? How did they morph? Or what happened to them? And, you know, where is it going? So through this first phase of observation of our play attractors, trying out, you know, in this very no goal, like, you know, very free and open way, still with some kind of a loose frame, like some things that we've been doing already together. So I'm going to start to define a little bit more like, here are coming some ideas, all right? I see that I really like this and I want to go deeper into that, and I love this color palette or these shapes or this texture or these elements or this subject. So we start to narrow a bit our frame to give us this support, this container, so that we can actually start to explore in a deeper way. And this is what I proposed you to do with the idea of having a project, of framing your project in, you know, it's still a very dynamic and open frame. As we saw, the frame is not something that needs to be rigid, but it's there to limit our exploration, because if there is no limits, actually it gets quite fluffy and it kind of loses itself in all these potentialities. So as we make the container a bit more limited and we start to actually collaborate with limitation, then more can actually happen. We can go deeper. So then we enter another phase, which is, I would say, deeper exploration, you know, like frame has been a bit narrowed and now I'm going deeper into my exploration, right? And there again, I'm going to bring, you know, my observation to see what works, what doesn't work. And usually, as I'm into this phase, things start to shape in some ways. And this is where we enter what I would call a little bit, it depends, but it can be a challenging moment, which is the moment where there's been things that have happened. I'm starting to be, there was beauty, there's been different things happening, but yet I can feel that the piece is not in its best form. It's not fully done, fully finished. And, you know, I can see that there are some things there that would need maybe to be transformed, arranged, reorganized, or something in my composition. So there, I'm going to give also some principle, but I'm mainly talking with, you know, about visual art, because most of us are really into the visual art in our group. And as you know, this is also my main focus. But I want to say that actually we could use exactly the same principle in another modality. If I would be working with music, with sounds, with poetry or creative writing, with choreography. I mean, these are general principles that we can actually apply to different artistic modalities. So when I get in that place where I've gone that far, but the piece is not yet really fully satisfying, and I feel that I need to go further, but I'm a little stuck. Because often what happens is that have been working already quite a bit on that piece, and I've seen so many of the details, it becomes more and more difficult to actually see what's really happening in there, right? My perceptions tend to get fixated of my piece. So how do I get a refresh? Do I get a shift of perspective? That's going to be really at the core of that central phase where many of us be at this point. Now, I just want to say a few words about how the cycle finish, knowing that I'll address some of that in a later video. But as we've seen, usually what happens is that then, through this kind of, a little bit more challenging moment where I'm like, where am I going to bring the piece now? Where does it really want to go? How can I take best advantage of what is there and still bring it to its next quantum leap kind of state? And so at some point, clarification comes, and then we enter what I would call more the finishing phase, where it's like, okay, now I know I want to do that here, that there. I see this detail and here and there. So I'm clear about my next steps, and of course things might happen in between the steps, but I'm kind of completing. I'm in the completing phase. And then I enter and there, okay, there might be some challenges, but somehow things can be clearer because I'm kind of knowing my decision making is much clearer. And this is really what happens, is that we need to be more and more conscious about our decisions, right? So, and then I get into the finishing part, and the finishing part is really this right balance between finished and finished, overdoing it and losing the freshness or not doing enough. And, this is a very delicate moment, and I'll talk more about it in another video. Now, what I want to add there is that, something that just is really important is that there is a different, when we start with play and free exploration, we let things happen. We welcome all the accident. We welcome the unexpected. We're really there to try out all kinds of things. Doesn't matter how it looks at the end. And, and harvest from that, possibilities that we will bring into our frame. But the moment we start to narrow our frame, we start to make more conscious decisions. And as we go into the process, more and more, we're going to have to make choices, conscious choices. And this is usually where the challenges also come, right? Because maybe my perception of the piece is getting a bit blurry or stuck, and I don't know actually what I can do to make my piece better, right? Okay, so what can I do when I get stuck in that phase? So the very first aspect is really observation. The very first tool, it's observation of our composition, right? And again, I'm focusing on visual art, that you could actually also see that for other modalities. So I found, it's of course observing my piece, first of all, with distance and close up. But for this, really, my making photos is such a great help, because in doing close-up, I become more aware of the beauty that lays in some of the details that might be a bit lost in the overall. And in seeing the overall, actually, I become more aware of the different balance and equilibrium that is needed in my piece, which I might not really see when I look at it with my eyes. Because the moment I do a photo, it's like suddenly I'm still close, but I have, I'm 20 meters away. So I really have the overall vision, and still I can stay close to the details. So these are really things that are there's an accentuation also of the contrast and the different elements, and it's really helping me to see more, because basically the main thing there is to develop my capacity to see and my capacity to break free from the fixity of my seeing, right? So I want to become more aware of, like, the general equilibrium of a piece. Again, in visual, could be a choreography, could be, could be many different things, right? But so the first thing is a balance between contrast and harmony, right? So contrast usually comes with some kind of variation. So maybe, it's suddenly there is a strong contrast in, first of all, in colors, colors and tones, right? So this is the first contrast that comes to mind. But the contrast can also be in terms of texture, in terms of shape, in terms of lines, in terms of busy and calm. So there are many different aspects that we can visit with this idea of contrast and harmony. So usually for me, the contrast goes with a strong variation, while the harmony goes more with the themes of repetition. So if I stay in a color palette and I keep in that color palette, so I repeat the same colors, there will be harmony. Now, after some time, I might need something strong to bring, a break there. So my eyes actually are going to be attracted to that, right? I might also have, repetitive elements, repetitive shapes. We've seen it many times. Something that repeats in some way that brings, it's the same in a piece of music or in a choreography, these repetition, these moments of repetition bring some kind of harmony, right? But if it's only that, it becomes boring, or if it's only variation, it becomes messy. So I have to find my equilibrium between these two poles. It could be also like big elements or big shapes versus small shapes, or small element. It could be structure, lines that are more structured versus lines that are more organic and accidental. It could be also, of course, light and darkness and middle tones, and see how there is variation. If everything is middle tone, okay, it might be my choice, but I will have little contrast, right? Now, if I use a little bit of dark in mainly light painting, the eyes are going to go straight to the dark. If I use a little bit of light or clear color, bright color in something that is pretty overall is dark, the eyes are going to go there, right? So I start to realize, in decomposing the details of my composition, the relationship between the different elements within my composition, I start to realize also where the eyes are going and what's happening. And then a big element also of equilibrium is between, I think, busy and calm. Too many things going on, too much of a good thing might be a bad thing, and not enough of good thing also. So, we need to find our equilibrium there. And sometimes to really see some of our beautiful details, we need to have areas that are much more relaxed and more plain, or colors that are more subtle, so that other colors can come out. So we start to have this kind of looking at the piece into detail. And as I said, we can really use a lot the digital for that. So we went into more details of, having exercise around that in the lab of last year. So this, I'm not going back into that, but let's see how everyone can explore having these kind of things in mind and analyze a little bit more the composition and see what works, what doesn't work, and what I like and what I don't like, and why. Why? That's the big questions. And now what I want to bring in, which is very linked anyway also to observation, because we're always going to bring observation in as part of a process in the different phases, but it's this notion of decentering, which is a central notion in expressive art. Because in expressive art, we have people who might come for therapy or coaching, and they usually come also with a feeling of being stuck, this feeling of stuckness in their own daily life, either it's a profession, in their profession, or it's a personal life, it depends, but there is many times, what happens, even a depression is a feeling of stuckness, it's like a refusal to embrace the movement of life, so they come feeling stuck. And the principle of expressive art is that we are taking them from their ordinary daily life and we transport them into the extraordinary art space in which they're going to be decentered from their life through an artistic experiment or a creative process that we as facilitators are going to guide for them. So in this decentering, they're going to get an opportunity to see themselves as creators from a different perspective, and there might be a lot of resources and information in that process that they can unveil and bring back into their life. That's kind of central to expressive art. But for us artists, okay, it's a little different. We are already in the creative process, but we get stuck in the middle of the creative process. So how can we actually decenter? So there again, we have a certain number of tools. And the whole idea of decenter is really shifting perspective. So already, like I said, just observation with the digital is shifting perspective. It's to break free from the fixity of my way of seeing, of my perception. It's to break free from my preconceived idea of what I think is nice. Maybe there are other ways of things being nice, or also, my habits, going back into the things that I already know, or repeating the same way when I feel that something fresh needs to happen there, right? So this is where we want to try to apply the same principle of decentering. So the first thing that we can use really is to transfer to another work or another modality, artistic modality. So another work. We go into this idea that we can always have a take 2 or a take 3, which for us artists, I extend to the idea that we can work on several pieces at the same time. Because, okay, the take 2, take 3, what is this? This is for those who are new also, I just repeat. Well, I've done a work. I've been as far as I could go. I can feel that now that's it. I can't add anything more because, whatever, maybe I was on paper, whatever is my medium, but I feel like I can't do more. But if I would do it again, I would do it different. There are some things that I would change. Well, fantastic, because this is exactly what is the artistic process for us artists, is that, okay, I leave that piece aside, but then make a take 2 and maybe a take 3. And this take 2 is going to be informed by all these discoveries of what worked, what didn't work, and the different challenge, the accident that we want to instrumentalize in our next piece. So all of this from our observation that we had on the take 1, we transfer to the take 2. And then we might add some variation into our frame. So that I already talked about it, but I think it's very important to repeat it because this is already a way to say, okay, I went as far as I could with that piece. Let's leave it aside now. Let's move on to a new take, which is a continuity of that piece. I'm still in the same body of work, the same bigger process, but I'm going to do another one now. Okay. And that also opens this other possibility that many artists are using, which is I work on several pieces at the same time. Because if I'm working on 2 or 3, some artists even work on more pieces at the same time, what happens is that when I'm stuck on one piece and I don't see anymore, I don't know what's my next move. I have, you know, when I try to dialogue with my piece, it's like flat. I'm stuck. So I leave that piece aside. Actually, I could even, you know, make it, you know, hide it, not look at it at all. And then I go and work on that other piece that I'm working on, right? And it might be a series, so I might even have started with my play and exploration in the same way. So there is a similar language in the different pieces, right? But then each piece is gonna have its own unique originality. So around, it would be a variation around a certain theme. So we go back to this idea of repetition, variation, of course, when we work on the series. So then I go into the fresh piece, and then, you know, I work as far as I can go. And when I get stuck there, well, I can go back into the piece I was working before and look at it again. And usually something happened that because we have descended from one to the other, and in the new process, there were some new things that come up, we can again take through observation of a piece, take some information there and move in to the first one. Okay, so this is really something that sometimes really works. Everybody's different, but sometimes I find it really, really good to work on several pieces at the same time. It's really release a lot of pressure, because when I'm stuck on one, okay, I move on another one. So that's one possibility already for decentering. So it's decentering within the same body of work, but, you know, moving from one piece to the other. Then the digital that we have, I just talked about, we can also use it for actually creation or really exploration. So I'm stuck, you know, then I bring my photo into Canva or into Procreate. And this is the kind of thing that Misha and I, you know, I've been also teaching either in previous labs, this lab, or, you know, in the analog digital. But I bring the work in the app, and then I can start to do exploration. Like, oh, what happened if I bring a new color? Completely different. What happened if I bring a new shape? If I bring a new element? So with like layering on top, like we can do in Procreate, and I'm pretty sure you can do that in Canva as well. Because that's not an app that I use personally, but you can actually do new composition, add up lots of things and try out and see there what works, what doesn't. So this is something that would be, if you work on a, you know, on a canvas, and you could go through all these different stages, and it might be good, you know, but it might save you time. And you will be able to do many exploration, and also sometimes in many of the exploration we also fuck up some things, you know, in the painting. So it might really open new avenues and open new gates in the way you can look at your painting working on it digitally. And then what I found out myself is that, okay, I bring it back, you know, after that I might take some of the things that I discovered in the digital creation back to my analog work. And then, okay, I might apply some of the things. I might not, you know, once I'm doing it analog, new things might happen. So it doesn't always follow exactly, you know, the same process and task that I have, and it might not give me exactly the same result that what I saw in my digital, but it's it's giving me a next step. Because for me, that's another thing that is really important, is that it's always about the next step. I remember, yeah, anyway, now I don't remember the name of the artist was saying that, but I was really resonating with that, which is what's most important is your next step. So it's to clarify your next step. You don't need to clarify all the next steps. You know, what's important, you clarify the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. So you stay really present and connected with the work, right? So doing the digital creation might open a next step. And I find also sometimes for me working with double exposure and Snapseed and bringing completely other kind of elements on my painting might also open like, oh, wow, it would be amazing actually to mix this and this. And maybe I want to bring a figurative element or another something else. So it can also be really useful to use the double exposure. Then there's another thing that for me is sometimes very useful as a decentering, which is I go back to play. You know, I'm stuck in my pieces, so I'm going to do something else that is fun, but is maybe not related at all, but it's still creative. I'm still in the studio. I'm going to give myself another moment of play. Maybe I'm going to paint. Maybe I'm going to take my sewing machine and customize one of my clothes. I'm going to do whatever, but something that is fun and fresh, and where, again, I release the pressure of result. Because when I'm already quite engaged in my process, I'm starting to feel more and more the pressure of result, because obviously I want to create a piece as good as I can, the best possible piece I would like to be able to create, right? So the pressure of result is like building up as we go deeper into the process, right? Some people might approach it in different ways. There are people who only do play, and then out of, I don't know, 500 play, they will keep maybe 10 that are really, really good, you know, and this is through the repetition of the play that they will actually, you know, define more their work and, you know, go on framing their work. So it depends, you know, the support you're working on and what you want to experiment with. So play, going back to play, I think is super, super important. Then you can really also move to a completely other medium or other modality, like we did in the, you know, the last lab, we worked with clay. I don't think anyone was working with clay for their, you know, their project. But suddenly it was totally refreshing. We could see it in a different way. It could be a kind of play, you know, like I just said, but it could also open, you know, another alley into my creative process. And I'm saying clay, but maybe I go back to photography. So I go into a artist walk with my camera, and I'm going to make some photos and see what happens there. So it decenters me. Maybe I go to a dance class, or I experience something with my body, I release, or really like we did in the creative writing lab, I give a voice to my piece, I see what comes out, you know, and then I give a movement, I exploit with a movement. For many of us, we discovered another layer through this movement. So I can go and decenter myself into another modality, and there refresh myself. You know, sometimes, okay, maybe there in that new activity, I will discover something new, but maybe just because I've refreshed myself, I've reset myself, and when I come back to the work with this fresh eyes, fresh perception, then I know what I need to do next. What's my next step? You see, I had a very powerful experience like this when I was it was during my master exam in expressive art, and I was doing a presentation, and you know, I wanted to take the people into an experience, and somehow I was getting stuck. It was, you know, I was not really getting it, you know. And then we had this one day outdoor, and as a group, we created this absolutely crazy performance where we were actually throwing enormous stones, you know, and doing something completely had nothing to do, but it just shifted my energy so much that on the way back, on the walk going back, it was clear. I knew how I wanted to do my presentation. I had the shift of perception. So I went back and I rewrote it. I just shape-shift the whole thing. And then it was great. So this is how we use this idea of decentering and how we can still be creative in our way of decentering ourselves so we can break the fixity of the way we are looking at our work. And then the last tool that, you know, all of you who have worked with me know that I'm really, really super interested in, which is deconstruction. And deconstruction, it's because through deconstruction, I'm going to break free from the fixity of relationship within my composition. And this is going to help me see new, see fresh, and realize, here I have an entry, an unexpected entry, something that I hadn't seen yet, right? So in deconstruction, if I'm working on the canvas, that might mean that there are some parts of my work that I need to let go. Maybe too much beauty, you know, is not good, because then we don't see the beauty anymore. So I need maybe to cover and layer or alter or scrape, or, you know, do something on some parts so that other parts can be seen. So I need to deconstruct the relationship and break the relationship in some way. Through layers. So it's a form of deconstruction through layers. And I might keep some things and leave out some. And there's a whole process also of letting go of our darlings, you know, of the things that we really liked. But because for the overall, and again, I go back to details overall, we need to do that. All right. So this is one way of deconstruction. And then there is the literal deconstruction, which is very interesting when we work with collage, assemblage, installation. So we can, you know, choreography, you know, elements, sculptures that are from different elements. So I might need to literally deconstruct. Or as we know, if I work on paper, click, 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 I can deconstruct. If I work with collage, I can deconstruct. So how can I deconstruct in a way that is going to break down the relationship that were getting me, you know, stuck and blurry? And I shift my perspective and I can see new. That's the whole idea of Gestalt, of background, foreground, is that I can shift the relationships within, you know, my composition. So yeah, this is a principle that we can use. You know, some people use it in theater, in performance. We can, it's a philosophical practice, so we can use it in many different ways. And when we're getting stuck, there are moments we need to deconstruct. We need to let go of some things in order of the new to come. And that's really these processes of deconstruction, reconstruction, is really the process of I let go of a part so that something fresh can come in. So that's also another cycle within the cycle, right? And I think that through the creation of a piece, we have many moments where we need to let go of some things in order to find that new, fresh possibilities. So that's, again, that's the repetition variations. That's, you know, repeating, integrating, creating harmony, feeling in control, which is wonderful, and feeling I have my skills. And then it's also this risk-taking. I'm going towards the fresh. I'm bringing that one thing that I have never done before. Something fresh and new is happening, discovery. And I think as artists, we constantly want to move between these two poles. And art is there also to express this particular flavor of the moment, of the now. So I think as artists, we also channel the collective now. So we are expressing something that is part of that now. So there is also a freshness, a newness that is also really, really attractive, right? Okay, so I hope that's all for today. I hope this has been helpful for your process. If you have questions, please reach out. You know, it's always so good to have questions. It helps everyone. So let me know, comments, and how this has been helpful for you. Let me know as well. And I'm going to be on a break in August, but I will still be going into our Facebook group, which I'm going to actually go a bit more also in the next days. I want to see what's happening there, and also adding up some of my own work on my own project. And yeah, I wish you a beautiful month of August. I hope it's going to be really also productive in the creative studio. And we still have until for those who are going to be part of a physical exhibition, by mid September, we're going to really need to know what it is that we're going to be bringing. So by the end of September, the work is kind of the work that we will present for this, and then of course it keeps going on for the physical exhibition or the virtual one. We need to be completed, right? So that's going to be really important to respect the time frame, because for us who are working in the organizational, it's going to be really, really needed. So all the best to all of you. Yeah, and we keep connected. Lots and lots of love to all of you.